Okay, good morning, everybody. Bill Lester here with University of Florida IFAS Extension in Hernando County, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. Today we have my regular co-host, Lily Browning. Good morning, Lily. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you, Bill?
I'm pretty good.
I'm back at the office. You can see my I just created this background right now. You'll watch me do it, actually.
From your new broadcast studio at the
New
office.
broadcast studio. Yes, we have renamed this little conference room the recording room. So that's what it's going to be for me. Because otherwise I sit in a cubicle, and so these type of situations would be made pretty difficult. So I have my own little corner now in this room. So.
Yeah. The problem with our office is in my office, the lighting is terrible. I have to, if I open the curtains a little bit, it doesn't look so much like I'm in a cave. But if I don't, it looks like I'm in a cave.
Yes.
All right. We got a couple people on here. Good morning, buddy. How are you doing?
From Tallahassee, from our state's capital, coming today. It is Buddy.
Exactly. And Austin's on here. Good morning. How are you doing? If anybody has any questions, please feel free to go ahead and ask them. I have my email up there. So if you have pictures of a lawn or garden or plant or insect or whatever kind of question, if you email them to me, I can share the picture with everybody and we could try to get to the bottom of it and figure out what it is. Oh my gosh. Austin.
I bet it's not as hot there.
Probably. And Austin, if you send us pictures of a lawn and garden problem from Green Bay, Wisconsin, we will try to answer it, but I can't make any guarantees. You guys have totally different grass and plants and everything up there. There's a lot of overlap, of course. Aphids.
He works in a greenhouse. That's why he wants to learn about Florida plants.
Yeah, I know Florida has a lot of greenhouses where we grow a lot of plant material that all goes up north and it's sold in grocery stores or nurseries and
My brother just bought a cherry tree. He's in Pennsylvania, so that's fine. Except he bought the cherry tree from Archer, Florida. And I said, the cherry tree has no business being in Archer, Florida, but maybe they can start them as babies and then move them, to appropriate climates. Maybe that's what's going on. He just planted it, so we'll see how successful it becomes for him. An ornamental cherry, I believe it was.
Oh, okay. That may work. A fruiting cherry needs cold temperatures. It needs those.
Right. Well, I assume the nursery just grew it, and he got it young. So now it'll be in Pennsylvania and get the chilling hours and stuff. So
you would be amazed at how many plants are started as little tiny starter plants in Costa Rica and other countries in Central America. And then they're put on a ship and sent to Miami. And in Miami, they're repotted and they're grown up into larger plants. And then they're put on a truck and they go to Green Bay or New York, New Jersey, or somewhere else in the country where they're sold and people either put them in their yard if it's appropriate for there or grow it as a house plant. So it's the whole ornamental and houseplant industry is just amazing how much they move all over the world. It really is a worldwide business.
Yeah. And that's why they also have to be regulated and be real careful because over years, that's how invasive exotic plants, insects, all that got moved about.
Yes, I just saw a presentation. It was, I think, day before yesterday from the gentleman who is in charge of the Division of Plant Industry with FDACS. That's the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. And he said, out of cut flowers, when you buy flower arrangements, and you guys are probably all either going out buying them or ordering them right now for mom for Mother's Day coming up. 80 to 90% of those flowers come from South and Central American countries. They're all flown into Miami and I think New Jersey or New York is another great big hub. And he said they're full of bugs. They're full of all kinds of insects from foreign countries. And it's really difficult for them to inspect them and say, okay, these ones pass, these ones we reject. It's really, really difficult.
Hmm.
And Austin says that they do flower arrangements, so he knows what it's like up there in Green Bay. And
You see Louise's question about saving seeds?
Austin said they had 1,000 plants sold on their May 1st and 2nd on their open house. That's great.
Wow.
It's a huge industry, and whether it's
Mhm.
cut flowers for Mother's Day or ornamental plants to put in your yard. I know with COVID, a lot of people turned to gardening, so people who maybe didn't garden that much before got really into it. And of course, they want to go out and buy tons and tons of plants. The business this spring at our Master Gardener nursery is way up, partly because we had a cold winter. A lot of people lost a lot of plants. They want to replace them.
Yes.
But yeah, they're booming out there. But we have a question from Louise in Broward County down in South Florida. And her question is, what are your thoughts about saving seeds from flowers or vegetables for future use? If yes, how long would the seeds be viable? I can tell you with vegetable seeds, it depends on what kind of plant you get the seeds from. If it's an open pollinated or heirloom vegetable, the seeds are going to come true. So what that means is if you grow an old variety of, let's say, green beans, and you let some of the pods get totally mature where you're not going to eat them, they turn brown, you save the seeds, then when you plant them, they're going to grow up to be the exact same variety of green beans. A lot of times people want to save seeds from vegetables they buy at the grocery store. So if you go to the grocery store and buy a tomato and you want to save the seeds from that tomato, it's probably not open pollinated. It's probably a hybrid tomato, which means it was bred where it had a mother tomato and a father tomato, which were different types of tomatoes. And genetically, it mixed into the tomato that you bought at the grocery store. So if you plant those seeds, you may get a plant that gives you tomatoes just like what you bought, or it may be just like mommy tomato or daddy tomato. Mommy tomato may be a really not very tasty tomato, but has great disease resistance. Daddy tomato might have, wonderful tasting tomatoes, but no disease resistance. So it's kind of, they mix traits. Think parents and children. The children aren't exactly like the parents. They're kind of a mixture of the two. So when you're dealing with hybrids, now you're always going to get a tomato. You're not going to get a watermelon or a green bean or a daisy or something. It'll be a tomato and it'll be safe to eat, but it may not be the kind of tomato that you were hoping for. Seeds can last and be viable for anywhere from 1 year to quite a few years. All depends. You want to keep them in a cool place, a cool, dark place. Some people refrigerate them, and I believe that's fine, but not necessary. So what about flower seeds, Lily?
I mean, the same thing that you just said. It depends on, if it's a native just growing out there on its own and you collect the seeds from it. Now you have to be careful because that's not always legal in many places. So I would suggest you go to Florida Wildflower Growers Association to purchase seeds. They're not that expensive because collecting seeds, you have to know exactly what you're doing, but also ecologically, because it's important. That's the right plant in the right place if it's growing, and it should spread the seeds and propagate itself there. So you don't want to rob the plant of that opportunity. Mm-hmm. So now there are native plant people out there who really know what they're doing and when and how to collect and save some for the area. I just bought some from the just look up floridawildflowers.com, and then it will take you to the growers co-op. So yeah, then if you got a blanket flower seed, you're probably going to get, if I shouldn't even use blanket flower. I mean, there's so many different types, like even chick seed. You'll, plant those seeds, you'll get whatever variety of chick seed that mother plant was. Now, if we're talking, though, more like even pentas or annuals, zinnias, things like that, those could, like you said, have been crossbred. So you can let the seeds grow, but you might not get exactly what you had planted. And the more hybridized you go, some are so hybridized they're not really able to be propagated. So it just depends. It's fun to try.
Yeah, it's definitely worth trying. And there's kind of a mixed bag about exactly what you're going to get, because if you're dealing with hybrids,
Right.
you could grow a variety of zinnias as a hybrid zinnias, and it might be pretty interesting exactly what you get from the seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, you want to store them in a cool, dry place. Try to get away from the humidity, and they should last for anywhere from 1 year to quite a few years.
What I got from the Growers Co-op is I got some more chick seed. I have some of that, but I got more. And dotted horse mint, blanket flower, which I didn't plant because it said to plant that in the fall. But there's one other native, and I went ahead and planted those, and I'm excited to see if they're going to come up and then be self spreaders. And even native, you have to be careful, because you just think, well, native is native. Well, even within different areas in Florida, different types of chick seed grow. There's the eco type to exactly your microclimate.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody sent me once, well, here's some native milkweed. Well, yeah, it was native to Michigan. It doesn't mean it's native here. So, and also, and I keep mentioning blanket flower, and I guess we should spill the beans about blanket flower. As I said, I say the poor blanket flower has been Plutoized. That's what happened to it. Poor Pluto was kicked off of the planet team, and poor blanket flower was kicked off of the Florida native plant team. Lovely, lovely flower. And it's funny, since I heard that, I've gone out and bought more because I feel sorry for it for being kicked off the native. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not invasive. Just they did more research, and they're like, these haven't been around. People brought these. They haven't been around, especially the big ones. Now, there is one like ecotype of blanket flower that is just not nearly as exciting as the ones we're used to. That is native, but generally the ones that we see, the beautiful orange flowers,
Mm-hmm.
they're great wildflowers, but not considered Florida natives anymore. If you have them in your native garden, please don't take them out. The butterflies love them. So,
Yeah, I saw that article and I started clicking on the links, and apparently they're reasonably sure that it is legitimately native to like Texas.
Yes, yeah.
But probably not native to Florida. It was brought here at some point, but they don't know when. It was brought here a long time ago. So it's not invasive. It's not like
it's
brought here from a foreign country.
No. It's naturalized, but maybe not a pure native. There you go.
Yeah, so then you start to get into the debate about how long does it have to have been here to be native? 500 years, 1,000, 10,000?
I think one of the things people settle on is, when Ponce de Leon came, if it was here, it's considered native. So, beautiful. Yes.
Yeah, and Lee says he has both blanket flower that comes up every year in Broward County, so it grows even further south of here in Hernando County. And Heidi says that she saves marigolds and sprinkles them as she picks them, and they come up very easily. Yeah, marigolds are
sure.
Marigolds, salvias reseed themselves. So even if you don't do anything, the flowers make seeds and it kicks the seeds out, and you will have new tiny little plants popping up, whether you want them or not. It's going to happen. I like flowers like that. I don't like to
Hmm.
have to do a whole lot of work.
Self-seeding, yes. I'm hoping
Exactly.
that dotted horse mint will do that because it does grow naturally in my area. But lots of the places where it grows, it's already been destroyed to build houses. So, so I'm trying to bring it back to the neighborhood anyway.
You're doing your part to reestablishing it.
Yes, yes.
Okay, like I said earlier, if you guys have any questions, just go ahead and share them in the chat. Or I still have my email up there if you want to shoot me any pictures from a problem plant or palm tree or a lawn or an insect or whatever it might be. We'll do our best to help you figure out what it is and what you can do about it. If you have to do about it, not all problems and pictures I'm sent are legitimately of concern.
Mhm. Well, I just did a pre-recorded program that's on my Facebook page as well as Bill's yesterday in response to phone calls I've been getting. It's hot and dry. We're in our hot and dry time frame. You know, wherever, if anyone listening from Florida, May is hot and dry. It's going to be at least 6 weeks before the summer rains start. And, you know, I work for the water department. And people seem surprised to learn our watering restrictions, which have been in place for more than 10 years. What is really surprising them is that even if you have a private well, you are subject to those water restrictions. Some people have a hard time understanding that. And that kind of goes back to, you know, the beginning of setting up water management districts in Florida. They're the ones who manage the, you know, flow and the availability of our natural aquifer. But when you buy a piece of property, you can look all through your deeds and everything. You're not going to see something that says you have water rights, you know, on that property. Some people seem to think they do. In Florida, nobody and everybody owns the water. So that is why me with a private well are on the same watering restrictions, if I watered, which I don't, that you are if you watered, but you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a municipal customer, you know, of Hernando County Utilities. Because basically the way I describe it is, here we go, here's my big old cup with this straw in it. Every one of us has our straws in this same cup. And that is why we all need to conserve the water. So that's my little spiel for for today. But if you look on my Facebook page and you're struggling with your lawn, that's the phone calls I'm getting. People, and we have talked about this many times, people see their lawn struggling because it's hot and dry. So what is their first response to a struggling lawn? Dr.
More
Lester?
water.
More water.
Followed by more fertilizer.
Yes. And then the next one, well, that didn't work, so it must be bugs.
Uh-huh. And it's usually none of the above. Usually,
exactly.
If your lawn has a problem, it's some kind of underlying problem. I don't think I've ever looked at a lawn issue, either out in person or through pictures emailed to me or from samples brought into the office. And I've never told anybody that the solution is to water it or fertilize it. It's always some other kind of underlying problem that unless you fix it, if you dump enough water on it and enough fertilizer on it, it'll turn green and you can keep it on life support basically, but it's still going to crash and die. Long term, you're not going to have a healthy lawn. And I look at it from a plant health perspective to give you a healthy lawn, even though most people look at it, well, I just want it to be green. And I make the HOA stop yelling at me or sending me.
That's what it is. That's what the phone calls I've been getting are. The county has been doing sweeps. So if you live in Hernando County, They code enforcement has been doing sweeps, you know, and if they catch you watering at the wrong time on the wrong day, you will get cited. There's not a warning. And now our own guys out there at utilities, what they've been doing is, if you know your lawn looks super duper, you know, looks like it's on life support, like you said, green, emerald green, when nobody else's is, they're going to make sure you're aware of the watering restrictions. Code enforcement are the ones who cite you, but they have to catch you. Our guys are going out and talking to people, like an education campaign. But I have gotten angry people on the phone who didn't want to be talked to, you know, or educated. But their question is, do I pay you, Hernando County, or do I pay my HOA? And they think that watering is the answer to it. So it is a struggle, but I have like an hour-long program, like I said, on my Facebook page, that if you are really interested, there's not one simple, easy answer. And there I explain, it's a complicated system, your lawn is, but it's not that complicated to treat it well. And one of the main things, more important even than watering, is what, Bill?
Cutting it at the correct height. Yes. And if it's dry, you should cut it even higher than you normally would. If you're depending on how high your mower goes, and there are lawnmowers that just don't go very high, and to help you, they have to get a different lawnmower,
right? Or put it up as high as it'll go. 4 inches, really, you know, when it's dry like this, 4 inches for your St. Augustine lawn. And I say that's more important than watering, because your lawn's going to get watered. It's going to get rained on. You know,
eventually.
It's going to absorb water from dew. It's going to collect water. Mowing is the only entirely human influenced activity, and that it's so incredibly important for your lawn to mow it high. That one simple step will help you have a healthier lawn. So.
Well, we had a comment here from Lee saying that his rain barrel is empty. It is so dry down there in Broward County, down in South Florida.
Yes.
And for anybody new to Florida, this is normal. I mean, normally this is a dry time of year.
It is, yep. But and the rains will start mid-June. We promise.
So Deb says that you could water with your hose all day long, but we really don't recommend that.
No.
And most people probably don't want to do that. But if you do have, let's say, a little flower garden or a newly planted tree or bush, we talked earlier about everybody buying new landscape plants to put in their yard. You can go out there with a garden hose or a watering can and water it. The restrictions are just for automatic irrigation systems. So you want to explain that real quick, Lily, about what systems it counts for?
You just did. The automatic irrigation system, watering your lawn. We're on 1 day a week. There are so many different nuances to the rules, but basically, if you have a vegetable garden, you can water that. If you have a plant beds, as you said, you can stand there with the hose in your hand, but it must have a self-canceling nozzle, not just a hose. The thing you hold, and when you let go, water doesn't come out. That's what the self-canceling hose end nozzle is. Micro irrigation in your plant beds, it's not good for your plants, but I mean, that's not restricted. It is good for your plants. It's not good for your plants to run it continuously, but that is not restricted. Mostly we're talking about the big sprinkler systems on your lawns. So even the hose and old-fashioned sprinkler, you'll get in trouble for having those on your non-watering day on your lawn as well.
Okay, and Deb said that she was talking about her flowers, and she heard from one of us that you could water it with a hose. So
Right.
hopefully that clears that one up for you.
Right, but it's probably better for the flowers to have them watered from the bottom, like, you know, with a drip irrigation system, micro irrigation system, even soaker hoses. I don't think they should count micro irrigation because they can be easily forgotten, but they do. So, you know, you can put one of those like on the ground around your flower beds too. So.
Okay, we got a question from Heidi about what are a few native flowers in zone 10A that are good for pollinators that you recommend for a kitchen garden design? And that's south of here. So that would be south of Hernando County.
Just same things, the chickseed, the that's coreopsis, purple cone flowers, black eye Susans. Take a ride in North Florida this weekend if you can. Go up 129. You will be just bombarded with fields of black eye Susans. It's a beautiful ride. If you're a photographer, go up and do that. The blanket flower, as she mentioned. Was she asking? Oh, native, yes. That's right.
I would suggest Biden's Alba.
There you go.
It's also called Spanish Beetle, beggar tick, Florida beggar tick.
Beggar tick. Yes.
Yeah, it has the little tiny white daisy flowers, and most people consider it a weed, but I know for beekeepers, they love it. Honeybees absolutely love it, and they use it as a pollen and nectar source when there really isn't anything else flowering. And insects love it, pollinators love it, butterflies love it.
They do. They do.
Everybody out there loves it, except for a lot of gardeners who just consider it a weed and pull it up.
Well, you don't want to have it where you or your dog are going to brush against it because you will get those hitchhikers on you. But it has put itself even in my front flower bed, and I try to contain it, but I cannot take it out because every time I walk out there, there's many different type of insects and butterflies on it, and I don't have the heart to take it out because they love it so much, and that's what it's about. And even when it froze back, and I was trying to clean out that bed, I got some of it out, but in another area where I was pulling it out, Bunny hops out of there, hops away, and I thought, she's got a nest in here. I can't clean this up. So the Biden's Alba is definitely winning.
Yeah, that's definitely a winner. Everything out there.
That name just means Biden means two teeth, you know, the shape of the flower, and Alba means white. So that's what that name means.
And we have a couple of ant questions. Heidi says she has ants living in the roots of her lime tree in the ground. Part of the tree just up and died. And Linda has an ant question. I have ants in the seams of my driveway that bring piles of sand to the surface. I have the same thing also. I think we all do.
Yeah.
What can I do to get rid of them without putting my dogs in danger of pesticide poisoning? Ants are a tough one. Obviously, there are products that you could put out to control ants. I really wouldn't recommend the broad spectrum things that when you go to the lawn and garden center, especially this time of year, you see pallets and stacks of it. And it would have you think that you have to put these granules over your entire yard to kill everything because ants and spiders and everything else out there is trying to come and kill you. That's just not the case. You don't want to broadcast something all over your whole yard. There are specific like Amdro and other ant baits that work really well depending on what kind of ant you have a problem with.
I would say if they're not fire ants, if you can, leave them there because having native ants live in your yard is one of your best defenses against the invasive fire ants. And Heidi has a little bit of an answer there that neither you nor I can give. because it could be dangerous, but if it comes from another listener, and especially since it's on a driveway.
Yeah, hot water can help. There are certain things that you could do that what it does is it just makes the ants feel unwelcome and they're going to
I
move
was
on or
thinking you
move
could
to
just
another spot.
every day sweep that scene, annoy them into going somewhere else.
Yeah, you can sweep the little pile of sand they put up away. And ants are funny. Ants a lot of times don't stay in one spot. Some of them do. Carpenter ants and other ones tend to stay in the same spot. Other ones around your lawn and in your driveway come and go. They're very, very seasonal. They'll be there for a bit, then they go away for a bit. But really, if they're not legitimate biting ants or fire ants, you really don't have to worry too much about them. Now, the ants living in the roots of a tree, that's going to be difficult. You could put down an ant bait, an Amdro type product, and hopefully they are the kind of ants that are going to eat that, and it's going to kill, they're going to take it down to the queen and it kills the colony. That's about all you can really do, because you wouldn't want to dump hot water on the base of your lime tree. That's going to damage it also. But as a general rule, ants do not damage plants. They will live around plants. They'll live in the ground at the base of the plant. They'll crawl up and down the plants. They will visit aphids and whiteflies and mealybugs that might also be on the plant. But the ants are not chewing on or feeding on the roots or the leaves to damage your plant. There are leafcutter ants, which I've never even seen them. There are species in Florida, but I've never heard of anybody else having an actual legitimate problem with them. But yeah, a lot of the ants don't directly damage plants. They can be annoying. They can bite you. I have biting ants out in my vegetable garden. I have to be careful with where I plop on the ground, lest I plop on top of the biting ants. I'm happy about them, but I'm not doing anything about them. So they'll go away eventually.
See, now I don't even have to talk because the participants are reading my mind. Heidi read my mind about the hot water. Mary has read my mind about diatomaceous earth. If you have some diatomaceous earth, it's worth a try to sprinkle on your ants. I think it might discourage them and move them once. I don't think it's a long-term solution. But and make sure you get the food grade, and then that won't hurt your dogs at all. So.
And be very careful when you're putting it down or applying it. Don't breathe it in.
Exactly.
There should be warnings on the label. Hopefully everybody knows our label.
Wear your mask. You've got a mask anyway. Wear your mask when you're putting it down.
Yeah, there you go. Keep the mask on when you're putting down the DE out there. And that makes insects feel unwelcome more than it kills a lot of them, if that makes sense.
Right. If it gets on them, it dries their exoskeletons out. But that's not like, and they'll be like, oh, Bob died, let's move. It's not going to eradicate, the entire, but it's certainly worth a try. So.
Yeah, and some of those different ants that will sometimes get into your house and into your kitchen, I have over the years had problems with pharaoh ants, ghost ants, which are so small you have to look at them just right to catch the light on them so you can actually see them. They're so incredibly tiny. What's the product that you could use in your house?
Pharaoh? Taro,
Terro, ant bait. And you take a drop of it and put it on a little piece of cardboard, and they come running, they eat it, and then boom, the next day they're all gone. Sometimes they come back in a few weeks, so you have to keep watching for them. But that works really well on a lot of those household, inside the house, teeny tiny little ants.
They're sweet seeking ants, and that's what the Taro provides the bait for. We had them at the extension office when we were in the trailers on Oliver Street during the trailer days, as Bill calls them, and we had that bait, and I would spend way too much time just staring at the ants, because you put a drop of it and they will circle, make a perfect circle around that drop.
They do.
there. Yes. So if you have them in your kitchen and stuff, it's a good, put it on a little piece of cardboard and they'll go eat that. And then they'll go home and say, oh, guess what? There's really good stuff over there. And more people, and more ants, I should say, and it does help take care of that problem.
And that's not always a one and done kind of thing. Sometimes if you have ants getting in your house from outside, it's a constant problem. You're going to have to bait for them. What you want to do is go outside and figure out how they're getting inside. And small ants can make it through really, really small cracks outside. We had some recently in our bathroom, and I went outside and found out where they were coming in. I sprayed outside around the wall. I had another a powder ant bait that I put in the switch plates, and I haven't seen them. They're gone, but they may come back. So you always have to watch.
Well, where your tub or shower is, there's one certain little circle around the drain that is just bare dirt. And that is an entry point for ants and termites and various things. That's always a place to watch for.
Yeah. So Heidi had to go. So if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to ask. I keep checking my email here. Oh my goodness, we have a question here.
Good.
And let me go ahead and read this first, and then I'll share the picture. This is from Louise, and she said, between 2 to 3 months ago, I saw and heard early in the morning 2 red-bellied woodpeckers pecking at this branch of my gigantic Royal Poinciana tree, probably 20 years old. Now, that is a beautiful flowering tree that y'all have down in South Florida. Do you know of any here in Hernando County?
1 or 2 in microclimates. I know people ask me about them all the time. People want them, and they tell me about my friend in Newport Richey. That's one of but my friend in Newport Richey has one. Well, that's about 25 miles south of here and on the coast.
And just warm enough where they will survive there. We have the Hong Kong
cherry
flowering trees here.
Yeah.
And they always get cold damage every year.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Royal Poincianas, y'all have them down there. We really don't have them much here. But she says, it seems that they have taken care of whatever insects were living in the branch. The rest of the tree looks healthy. It's been about 2 years since I've had this tree pruned. What is your prognosis and what do I need to do? And
what's the tree?
Let me go ahead and screen share here. And you see that okay?
I see it, but it's small.
Okay. I can see it also. It's a little small, but this is a big branch of a tree. Oh my gosh, it's got some big holes in it. I guarantee you have something living in those holes. Because a woodpecker might make a large hole in a tree, and a gopher tortoise might dig a large hole in the ground, but when they're done with it, there's plenty of other little living things outdoors that are going to move in and use it as a home. They'll move out, somebody else moves in, other things move in with them, so they have roommates now.
They're subletting.
Exactly. They're sharing space. It looks like that branch is dead above where the holes were drilled. So that
thinking possibly the tree was already under stress, and it emitted a pheromone, which brought the insects, which brought the woodpeckers. That's what I'm thinking. It's a process. And if it's 20 years old, I don't know how long they live. Maybe that might be its lifespan.
I'm not really sure either. I think they can be pretty long-lived, but I'm not sure exactly how long-lived it is. And she just commented, yes, the branch is dead. So you have a choice between basically 3 things here. You could contact a certified arborist and have them come out and look at it and evaluate the tree for how healthy or how safe or unsafe it is. because we really can't say from a picture, and you want to only have a board certified arborist come out. If you're wondering, well, who do I call? If you go to the International Society of Arboriculture, and that's a hard word to say, ISA for short, and if you just Google ISA and go to their website, they do have a directory where you can put in your zip code and they tell you all the certified arborists in your area that you could try contacting. So you could have them come out and look at it, or you could plan on having that branch cut off, and hopefully there is no rot that has moved from that branch deeper into the tree, which obviously is going to be a problem. Or if the tree is not in a spot where if it breaks or falls down, it's going to damage your house, your car, your neighbor, your kids in the front yard playing baseball, if it's far enough out in your property, you could just leave it, because that's called a snag. And that's a tree that you leave that's either dead or dying, that now woodpeckers and eagles and birds and insects are all using for a home. But you can only do that. You don't want to do that with a tree that's right next to your house.
Right.
Because it's going to come. And you don't want it to come down in the middle of the night during a thunderstorm on your house and take out power lines or anything else. So you have one of 3 different choices here. And I see somebody did share right here, the International Society of Arboriculture. That's who you want to Google and look up. And gosh, we have everybody posting that here. And they do have a good directory where you can go on there, and I believe it's zip code based. So you put in your zip code and they give you a listing of everybody who's,
in your area. Yes. And that was just me, who apparently I am you. And when I post as you, I also post as your office.
Okay, I didn't know that. See, I learned something today too. Yes. You learn something new every day around here.
I think also their easy website is treesaregood.com. And that will take you to the International Society of Arboriculture. And like you said, it's really easy. You can put in your address, you can put your zip code, you can say, I want someone within 25, 50, whatever miles. And it'll show you who has that certification in your area. Call them now, because closer we get to hurricane season, the busier they're going to be.
Yes, you want to call them early. You want to call them in the off season. When we get close to hurricane season, I know they get very, very busy doing preventive maintenance and tree removal and trimming in preparation for storms. And if you wait until after a hurricane comes and goes and you have a great big tree laying down in your front yard now, they're not going to be out for a while.
Right.
Because they will be really busy at that point. And that's a really bad time, because now you have people from all over the country that hop in their pickup trucks and drive here, and they start knocking on your door, and you don't know who they are, and they probably don't have insurance, and they might know what they're doing. They might not. They probably don't. So you want to find somebody who knows what they're doing now. And Louise, I think, is going to do that. She says, I'll find an arborist because it's aiming right for my bedroom. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Lily, I don't think I mentioned this to you yet, but in early June, let me go ahead and pull up my calendar here. We are going to have a class on preparing your trees for hurricanes on Friday, June 4th.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, well, Jamie Lynn, who is with Lake County Extension, emailed me and asked, do you want to do that class? I mean, time flies. Here we're coming up on hurricane season again, and we did this last year. We'll do it again this year. We'll squeeze you in for a couple minutes. So.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome. Sorry, I hadn't had a chance to mention that to you yet, but that is coming up.
I've been moving in this week, and you've been at a conference, so we haven't talked as much as normal. Do you see Joelle is asking about elderberry sourcing?
Yes, so Joelle is asking about where you would find elderberries. If you go online, they have so many different seed companies and nurseries online that you can order from, and they ship all over the place. You just want to make sure that they're shipping you plants that are going to grow in the part of Florida that you now live in. I'm sure you could order elderberries, but they grow wild here. They grow.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
They like wet areas, so they grow alongside of the road in ditches.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know a good drainage ditch somewhere in your neighborhood, that's a good place to go looking for elderberries.
You know
We
what
have
is
we have some huge ones at the nursery in that ditch that runs right through the nursery, and they grow right in the ditch. I guess it would be a good rain garden plant also. Are they on that?
no trees are good rain garden plants.
Well, it's not a tree. It's a shrub.
Okay.
It's a big shrub.
Depends on, I mean, it'd be a good thing to have in a wet area, but that might be all that you have there. So
yeah, they get large. So a lot of people consider them weeds, but if you're trying to grow elderberries because you want the actual berries, if you have a wet spot in your yard, it's a good choice.
Mm-hmm.
And you could probably order them online or just go searching the ditches in your area.
Mulberries have made a comeback since last year. They were really big. Have you noticed that? People were like looking to purchase mulberries and all this. And to me, that was kind of interesting because it's like nobody talked about mulberries for 50 years. And then suddenly they were back again. So and you have to be careful with those because there are invasive species of mulberry. Well, I don't know if they're invasive. They're weedy, I should say.
Yeah, I was going to mention that the white mulberries or paper white mulberries, if you grow them, be warned, you will have them popping up all over your yard. Because I've taken calls before from people that are, how do I get rid of these darn things? I can't get rid of them. They keep popping up all over the wooded part of my property or my yard, and they can turn into major weeds. You know, I'm not positive, and my guess is that we probably have at least one species that is technically on the invasives list.
Probably. I think the paper mulberry is on
I think the paper white is
somebody
invasive.
Was asking me about a year ago, they didn't want a tree, they wanted mulberries. They wanted to be able to purchase the mulberries, and apparently they don't pack or travel well, which is why they're difficult to like sell in a market.
Yes.
But it must have been somebody was touting their health benefits is why everybody was wanting mulberries, you know, kind of like the, what was the trendy one? I lost it because they have different ones. There's the acai ones and the moringa, you know. Moringa, there is a new thing that's going to solve all of your problems. And you do have to be careful if everyone is saying, you know, the new upcoming wonderful thing, because you got to look at it if it's not a native, at its invasive potential here too.
Yes, and moringa is technically now on the invasive list. So if it gets away from you, it can spread far and wide. But yeah, Joelle asked about the elderberries. She has a wet area of her yard, and she wanted it for medicinal use. And mulberries are cool too. So I know mulberries literally grew wild up in Maryland when I was a kid. And we, you know, in the spring, you walk past the trees, you just reach up and start picking them out. It was the ones that start red and turn black.
Yes.
And they turn into.
I have a story about that. You know, I have a story about everything. I have a story about Pennsylvania neighbor's mulberry that reached over into our yard. Apparently, I gorged myself on them when I was about 8 years old. My mother hadn't really paid attention to that. All she knew is my sister was screaming in the middle of the night that I was vomiting blood. She took me to the emergency room, and the nurse is looking at that like, well, this sure looks like berries to me. So there's my mulberry story.
Yeah, and mulberries, if you're a little kid, are really good because the berries stain. So if you start throwing them at each other, you can make stains on other people's shirts.
Yeah. Why would you know that, Bill?
And don't plant them where they hang over your sidewalk or driveway or car. They are really messy. And I guess they grow wild all over up north.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like we're kind of getting close to that time. Let me mention, I'm scrolling hernandoextension.com at the bottom here. If you go there, you can find out about all of our upcoming classes, and whether it's Lily giving it, or me, or my boss, Jim Davis, or Brittany, who is our Sea Grant agent. She does a lot of really great classes on saltwater aquatic organisms, things like sharks and manatees and horseshoe crabs and everything that lives out there. And it tells you if you have to register, or if it's on Zoom or Facebook, because we do all kinds of stuff all over the place. It's hard for me to keep it straight some days, I have to say.
Yeah, we do. Mm-hmm.
If I didn't have Google Calendar, I would be so completely lost and I would never show up for any of the classes.
I have a tree story, though, before we go.
Okay, sure. What's your tree story?
On sycamores. I have come back to work, right? And I parked in my old spot where I always park, which there's a small sycamore there. That's why I park under it for the shade, right? Still looks perfectly healthy, but one of its limbs decided to lay down on my car.
Oh.
On Monday. Didn't do any damage. It's like it really looks like it twisted, but we can't see any, like, we don't know why it happened. And then it just kind of laid down on my car. Didn't really cause any damage. But sycamores are an interesting tree. They're beautiful and they can grow huge. This one hasn't, but other ones on our property have. They reach up to our second floor easily, you know, at our windows here. But it just for no reason, in the middle of a sunny day, one of the branches decided to really just twist off and lay down on my car. So the sycamores are beautiful, but they get so huge and they are kind of weak. So they're not always, unless you have a lot of space, a great landscape type of plant.
They get very twiggy and branchy. They'll leave a lot of litter. And they're funny because it is a good shade tree. They have really large leaves, but it seems like they're the first to lose their leaves in the fall and the last to get them back in the spring. Because I used to have one in the backyard of a house we lived in, and every year I thought the thing was dead, and then it would get new leaves in the spring because it was like the last tree in the neighborhood that got leaves. So
they're wonderful for the big ones that are by our wall of windows we have here on the second floor, because we watch hawks and all sorts of goings on in them. But this one never did get big. I think it's because it's a poor urban tree that is stuck between, you know, two asphalt places in a more or less a little island. So it has never been able to grow well. And I think it's going to be a victim of a new parking lot eventually anyway, but just kind of a warning there. So now I park under a oak tree. So.
There you go. Hopefully a little bit safer.
Yes.
Well, Deb's going to start making pesto from her basil.
Oh,
so let's
cool.
go ahead and take one more quick question here. And this one's from Toby. He asks, is diatomaceous earth okay around my veggies needing to do some flea control in the yard? Yes, the food grade diatomaceous earth is fine. People use it on their chickens. I assume it's labeled for that. I don't have chicken. I'm not a chicken expert, but. Well, Lily, you should know about chickens. Do you use diatomaceous earth on chickens?
I don't know. I haven't personally owned chickens, but so I'm not going to answer that. But.
Okay. But yes, it should be labeled safe to be used around your vegetables. You want to use the diatomaceous earth that's food grade and not the kind that you use in pool filters.
Right.
Because that's a different grade. It's a different type.
Right. And it is perfectly safe, except it is so fine, as Bill said. So just make sure you don't inhale it, inhale the fine little particles into your lungs.
Just be careful when you put it in town. And as always, whenever you're using anything like that, read the label, read all the cautions, directions. Protective equipment that you should wear, if it's safe to use around your vegetables or food crops, it's all there on the label.
While we're talking about it, why don't you explain what diatomaceous earth is?
Sure. Diatoms are a tiny microscopic little organism that lives in the sea. And we still have tons of diatoms. If you look at I think it's freshwater and saltwater. If you go to a pond or go to the Gulf and look at a sample, you're going to find diatoms. They're microscopic little organisms that have a microscopic little shell. So diatoms, prehistoric ones that died 1 million years ago, got compacted in layers that are actually mined. And if you take them, you can grind them up into a powder. So you look at that powder and you think it looks like talcum powder. You pick it up, it doesn't hurt you. But if you're a very, very tiny little insect, the ground up diatom shells, it's like walking on broken glass for them. Mm-hmm. So they'll either be discouraged and go away, or they can walk across it and become injured and pass away because of that. So it's the way that it impacts or affects insect pests is it basically cuts them up as they walk across it. It's only going to work on very tiny insects.
Yeah. I don't think I have ever heard anyone refer to an insect passing away. That was so very genteel of you there.
Well, I mean, this is public. I don't want to get too. Yeah. I'll try to put things. Hey, this is a family show. I'm going to put things in a friendly family way.
That's
So diatomaceous earth can work, and I think mostly discourages insects as opposed to killing a lot of them directly. Anything that's crawling around on the plant or the ground that's very, very tiny. Probably it's not going to work very well on larger beetles or stink bugs or anything like that. Might make them angry, but it's not going to kill them or make them pass away.
It's pretty drying, as somebody else mentioned, she's going to wear gloves because it will. That's what it does. It dehydrates. So even on your skin, when you use it, you can feel how dry your skin gets from it. So
I know that people with chickens will dust their chickens with it to keep insect pests off of them. Mostly fleas and other kinds of insects like that you can have problems with.
Poultry lice, yeah.
Yeah, poultry lice, and it works well on them. But it's not that it's so much. I'm sure that if you get a bunch on it, it will kill something small and soft-bodied like lice. But it prevents them from getting on them. It discourages them from getting on your chickens. Mm-hmm. So there are some things that it's worth maybe trying to see if it's effective preventative. People make things out of garlic and hot peppers. They spray around their garden. They spray on the plants. It's not going to kill a whole lot, but it may just discourage things. It's very, very hit or miss as far as whether it's going to work or not.
The vampires won't come around your vegetable garden.
So here somebody agrees with you. Very genteel. So we keep this a family-friendly broadcast here. But hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Next week, we will be back. And Lily, do you know we're going to have a guest here with us next Thursday?
No, I don't know that. Whom are we having?
Michael Singer with Hernando County Environmentally Sensitive Lands will be joining us.
I like him. Cool.
Yes, Mike's a great guy, and he is the director of Hernando County's Environmentally Sensitive Lands. So I'm sure we're going to talk about invasives because he has to deal with them hands-on a lot, and he can talk about them from the perspective of protecting large tracts of county-owned property from invasives. Some people think that, hey, if I just keep my invasives in my own yard, that's okay. Well, not always. They escape and they get on Mike's property, and he doesn't appreciate that. And the week after that, we don't have a guest yet, but the week after that, do you know who's going to be joining us?
I do not.
Okay, see, you learned something new today too. My boss, Jim Davis, is going to be here with us.
Good. That'd be great. He
Start
knows
saving,
a lot of stuff. Yeah.
yeah, start saving those really hard questions for him.
Palm questions. Bring your palm questions. What is that date?
Let me open up it's the last Thursday, May 27th.
May 27th. Bring your palm questions for Jim Davis. He's really good at that. He also was pretty good at insects too, and nature. He knows a lot about birds and all that. So.
Okay. Well, I think that's about all the questions here. And thank you very much, everybody. And you guys take care. And we'll see you here again next Thursday at 10 a.m. See you then.
We will see you.